Can the new K4 hatchback compete with the Corolla hatchback? We'll find out with today's comparison. The Orem Toyota is providing us with this Corolla hatchback, so I'll put a link to their website in the description down below. Let's get right into it. Powering the Kia is a turbo 1.6 liter 4-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed automatic. It produces 190 horsepower and then 195 pound-feet of torque. Powering the Corolla is a 2-liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated paired to a CVT. It produces 169 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. If you're looking for more straight-to-the-point comparisons like this, make sure you subscribe. Now, especially with this gold paint job, the Kia is a lot flashier. And I mean, even without the gold, the headlight design with how the lights kind of go into that chrome trim makes it look like a front light bar. It's out there. The Corolla, on the other hand, is a lot sportier with the overall style. You can see a lot more angular. I mean, look at the hood, look at the headlights. 235 by 40 by 18 for the tire wheel setup with the Kia. Blacked out wheels, blacked out fender flares. 225 by 40 by 18 for the Corolla, so slightly smaller tires, but not by much, and metallic gray for the wheels. Now here's a side profile of the K4 hatchback. You can see it's got more of a station wagon appearance with it being boxier in the back end. Notice how like the hatch goes all the way to the bumper. The bumper doesn't stick out. Now compare that to the Corolla, which is less boxy in the back end. You can see the bumper sticks out quite a bit. So the Corolla has like an actual traditional hatchback design with it. This does mean there's a practicality difference. The Kia is noticeably more spacious in the back because it seems like you've got a little bit more horizontal and vertical space. And the Corolla is certainly no slouch, but with its design, it is going to be a little bit less spacious in the cargo area. Now the back ends of these cars make it look like they're in two completely different segments. So you can see the Kia is kind of like lower, wider looking, whereas the Corolla is taller looking. It is one of the craziest differences I've ever seen with two cars that are in the same exact segment and almost the same size. The Kia is only about 2 inches longer than the Corolla. Now inside, the Kia's got good legroom, knee height's good. We've got some vents here in the back, USB ports as well. And it's very fancy and luxe. You got these perforated seats. This Kia is more expensive than the Corolla though, so you hope it'd be a bit fancier. Headroom, we'll kind of compare that with both the cars. Yeah, the Corolla is definitely more cramped in the back seat. It's not horrible, but it is noticeable. And we do have some USB ports here in the back. I actually really like these seats. Got this little like cloth strip here in the center. Headroom, it does feel a little bit tighter as well, just kind of like a tighter cabin. You got features like blind spot monitoring with the Kia. You got this nice trim all over the door panel. Heated, ventilated seats with memory function, heated steering wheel. The seats are power adjustable. They're also pretty fancy looking. And if you start it up, full digital gauge cluster, just has like a giant tablet across the dash. The steering wheel is also cool looking. Got paddles on the back, your drive mode select. It has adaptive cruise control with lane centering. We also have a 360 camera system with this as well. You got physical buttons down below, including for the climate. We've got our USB ports and everything, 12 volt below with the phone charging pad. Shifter here for the 8-speed automatic. Got the double cup holder set up where they pop out, kind of a little bit over-engineered. And good center console space. Nice trim there, and you know, yeah, this stuff, it's synthetic, but it feels pretty good. We do have a sunroof up front with the Kia. Now we've got blind spot monitoring with the Toyota, and you've got nice trim here on the door panel, window controls, all of that. The seats are power adjustable. Again, they got that kind of like mix of the cloth trim. We'll start up the Corolla. Look at that, we got digital gauge cluster. This is kind of more traditional because it's like in the dash, right? And then with the steering wheel, you got a little bit less fancy looking, but you got paddles on the back, you got adaptive cruise control, all of that. Let's see, it's just got a backup camera. Here's regular backup camera. Dual zone climate with this. We do have heated seats and a phone charging pad. No air conditioned seats with this though. Would you look at that? Got a good old shifter there. Some cup holders, center console, and again, it just feels tighter. Like this feels like a narrower car overall. No center for anything like that. Now, like I said, the Kia is more expensive. It's a bit over $30,000, whereas the Corolla is about $28,000, a bit over $28,000. So they're not like $10,000 apart, but they're about $2,000-ish price difference. Let's drive them. Okay, let us set off in the Corolla first, and then we'll drive the Kia K4 second. It's interesting to see them side by side because that Kia really does look so different in this segment, being more of like a, like I said, station wagon style whereas other cars in the segment are still kind of more traditional hatchback. And you know, if that Kia does well, if it sells really well, then maybe you'll see more manufacturers switch over to the kind of station wagon type style, because it is more practical. It makes the car a lot more spacious. This is a different look. I don't think it's bad. Again, you have to remember, like, these are small stylistic tweaks, but they're not really going to change major driving dynamics too much. So you could still put really sporty suspension underneath that car and a sporty engine, and it would drive just as excitingly as a regular styled hot hatch. Now, the Toyota on paper, right, doesn't sound as exciting. CVT, less horsepower. But here's what the Corolla has: the will to survive. It's a very reliable setup. Toyota's NA 4-cylinders are very good. Their CVTs are very good. So what you lack in excitement, you gain in fewer headaches. Again, it's a very reliable setup. And it's a nice drive. Again, don't feel the need to push this car at all. This is kind of a car you just get in and you just kind of drive around. Very relaxed. And it does well at that. The suspension is comfortable. You know, for an economy car, it's relatively quiet. Interesting. I always like how these Corollas drive. And you know, the interesting thing about these hatchbacks is they are quite a bit smaller than the sedan counterparts. Both the K4 and the Corolla hatchback are, I think, like 10 or 11 inches shorter than a K4 sedan or Corolla sedan. But that's why the hatchbacks, part of the reason why they look so good is because they have the same wheelbase. So you have less overhang front and rear, which I think overhang just always makes a car look worse stylistically. I shouldn't say always, but oftentimes. You gotta have a little bit, but not too much. And the hatchback seems to be the perfect, I don't know, ratio with that. I don't know what other way to put it. So, we'll just leave it at that. I just realized that's a weird house. There's like a little community on one side, apartments on the other. It means that person is like, I'm not selling out. Sorry. It's just fun. I've driven down this road so many times and I never thought the house is just kind of sitting there. It's like an up house. So this drives well. Again, it's not particularly exciting, but the Corolla is about fuel efficiency. You know, you can easily get over 30 miles per gallon with both of them. But then the reliability is very appealing. I mean, I have friends that have tons of miles on these. These are easy to service, cheap to service, just a good car. It's like all my friends that own these, they always talk about selling them because like they want something that is like more capable, more exciting, but then they never end up selling them because they don't want to have a car payment and they don't want to have a bigger maintenance payment. It's kind of like these are kind of like the Nokia of cars in a way. So let's go pop into that K4. Oh, hold on. I was like, why the heck is this thing not moving forward? So, K4 hatchback. I actually knew someone that would say that. They wouldn't say hatchback, they'd say hashback. It was, I don't even know if, I hope that Utah accent still exists. There's a lot of random little accents in Utah. I have a bit of one. I don't know if it pops up on camera too much. I just have people, whenever I go out of state, I have people tell me I have an accent, but yeah, they would call them hashbacks. So I always thought that was kind of funny. But this is a completely different experience. Completely different experience. Definitely feels more luxe than the Corolla. And it almost seems like the interior is a little bit quieter. And it's got a lot of fancy doodads. Turn signal camera, 360 camera, ventilated seats, that stuff is nice while it works. And here's the thing to note about these modern cars. So you guys have probably noticed there's been a lot of reliability issues with modern cars. Some of that is due to modern engines, right? Engines like this that are small displacement, turbocharged, so the engine's under more stress. So that's going to cause some potential issues. And then also just, you know, how these engines are maintained. You know, the automakers are saying, oh, you can do oil changes every 10,000 miles, when with a turbo engine, you don't want to go past 5. Even if it's a hybrid turbo, you don't want to go past 5. Not worth it. But the big thing is all these features. Every single little fancy thing that you add to a car, that's like another computer or another series of computers. And those computers have to talk to each other. And you have them all kind of locked into, I mean, it depends on the car, but usually into one system, and this just being a regular car, it's all locked into the 12-volt battery to power it. So the point I'm trying to make is you have a system glitch out and it can cause a power surge to the battery, or there's so many, or it can pull too much from the battery. There's so many things that can happen because there's so many electronics. The reason I'm bringing this up, this definitely has a lot more fancy stuff than that Corolla. So there's a lot more that could go wrong. But it does drive, I would say, objectively better. The suspension's a little bit more comfortable. I actually don't like the power delivery on this. Believe it or not, the CVT, although not the most exciting engine, right? Certainly not the most exciting engine. I actually like it with the NA 4-cylinder because it's just, when I put my foot down, there's a bit of turbo lag. Now, it's not the worst thing ever, but it is noticeable. You kind of have to build up the boost a little bit. Like, I've kind of come to the conclusion that I don't really want, like, turbo 4-cylinders, I don't want to drive it unless it has a hybrid associated with it, because that hybrid can at least fill in that initial torque gap to where it doesn't feel so laggy. And, you know, some of the German automakers have dialed things in quite well with turbo 4-cylinders to make them a bit less, but there's always going to be that lag. Gotta spool up the turbo. So, yeah, this is more comfortable. This is more luxe. It's a nicer car. How long are you going to keep the car, right? Are you going to keep it past the warranty period? Because if so, yeah, the Toyota's probably going to be the better bet. But if you're not, Kia is exciting. Resale value on the Corolla is probably going to be better. I mean, both of these, you're not going to experience like an insane level of depreciation because their starting price is not too, I mean, it's not dirt cheap. But when you're $30,000, there's only so much value you can lose. That's how it is. I mean, it's pretty simple. Do you want reliability or do you want fancy features? Do you want a more luxe ride or do you want a more durable ride? It just kind of comes down to what you're looking for. And, you know, I hope that Kia long-term in Hyundai prove me wrong and that their cars end up lasting longer. But I mean, what I've seen so far with these is that, you know, they can't even make it to the 10-year, 100,000 mile. You know what I mean? That's what the powertrain warranty is. It's like they seem to blow up at like 50, 60,000 miles sometimes. And definitely after 100. I mean, I've had so many people tell me with Kias and Hyundais, and it's not the newest stuff, but the older stuff. Not that old. So, that's all.